Hello, hello. This is episode 48 of the Lorethrough. I'm doing things a little bit differently today. For one, this is a bunch of PvP pieces I have cobbled together, and I'm doing a voiceover. And what I did is I grabbed 19 of those single-use bloody fingers that used to invade people, and I took my horribly unoptimized build, and I invaded people, as is. 2 talisman slots, level 60, plus 8 weapons, and just the flasks that you have it by that point in the game. And it was a mixed bag. I won some, I lost some, as you will see on screen. I don't do very well. I'm not using meta equipment, not using like twin lances or spears or really any of those weapons that people consider to be very good. And it was a good experience, though I lost a lot more than when you have a build that's very optimized, you've gone late in the game, grabbed all the stuff you need, and probably at some other point in the future I will make a parallel video to this one, which will be level 60, my level 60 character, a different one, with probably plus 12 standard, plus 5 somber weapons, just kind of showing off what it's like. But level 60 is an odd invasion range, mostly because the lethality is relatively low compared to other level brackets that people like to invade. 40 and 60 are relatively low lethality. You start to get a little more lethality around level 80, and then by level 100 and 125 everyone's hitting like a bus. 150 is even higher, and then it just kind of keeps going probably until about 200, and then it tapers out a bit. Of course, that's just because everyone has a good amount of flat defenses at that point. Everyone also has really high damage and scaling. There's me dying right there to bleed, being a little too rambunctious, and the point down true combo blender that I could not avoid. I play PvP for the fun aspect. I've never been particularly good, but I've been good enough in most situations to get by. And you may notice that we are invading in places that you haven't seen before in the Let's Play, and that's because I wanted to expand the range at which I could, the different vistas I could invade in, mostly so I wouldn't have to be waiting around for ages to only invade in Liurnia and Limgrave. So we're in several other places as well. This is a very overleveled Phantom here. It's got a very heavy Commander Standard, and I guess the Commander Standard isn't so heavy, but it's got that fingerprint shield. It's like the heaviest shield in the game. Weighs like 28 or some horribly high amount. And watch when he pokes me. That's a big number. Yeah. And I tried to strafe him, but it didn't work out. I should have rolled. That's on me. But look how proud they are. I hope I was a fun little in-joke, you know, in those invasions, because I think Outlook is the biggest thing I want to talk about during this video, is you are just a minor villain in the story of these other players. You should be trying to give them a good adventure. You should be seeking to sap some of their resources. You shouldn't be trying to use every dirty tactic you can to win. Now, of course, it's at the end of the day, it's a video game, and nothing you do in here is outright illegal. You can play the game how you'd like. This is sort of just my methodology. Look at me, cowardly, like a coward, hiding behind patches and forcing the host to back off while I deal with this Phantom. Kind of a funny little thing, using him as a wall there. If he hits him 2 more times, then patches will be hostile to him until he atones for his sin. That was I feel like tricking player characters into attacking NPCs was more of a thing in Dark Souls 1 and a little bit in Dark Souls 3. I wasn't around for the multiplayer Dark Souls 2, so I can't speak on that one. But yeah, I was trying to get a certain kit to work in a lot of these invasions. The Iron Cleaver in the main hand and the Halberd in the offhand, because you have a ranged option that kind of stumbles people. You have a fast smack, and you can punish people to get really close. Storm Stomp was not working for me. I know they nerfed it, so it's not nearly as strong as it once was. It used to be really good, and now it's just a solid pick. But I just really wanted to, you know, get something off where I would get like a poke, stomp, poke, and then follow with a heavy, and I just could not get it for the life of me. I feel like it works a little bit better at higher levels. I initially saw a setup like this with a poison build, actually. I can't remember the name of the YouTuber I saw it from, but he was using poison. It was a strength build primarily, but it used a little bit of poison on the Iron Cleaver as well as the Halberd, and I think the poison encourages people to panic roll away even when you get ghost hits, and that must have been the difference, or at least a big part. That and the level bracket. But yeah, so I was really confused. I thought it was daytime. I love how I shake right there when the Death Ray bird's just screaming. Can't speak. But yeah, just the invasion scene is very peculiar at level 60. This is another example of why it feels unfair to invaders, and that's probably deliberate. You're supposed to just show up and sap some of the resources, but this guy's obviously hanging around the Church of Ella. He could advance the game as much as he well pleases if he really needed to. So, and one of the things that he will have over me as the host is he should have twice as many flasks, at least. And if he's gone farther in the game, he'll have a little more than that. So, versus my 5 flasks divvied up between health and mana, he should have 14. And I should have probably been counting how many times he heals during this fight. It felt like a lot, but he just has the means to heal a lot more than me. He's obviously put a lot of points into Vigor. If I was intentionally building a PvP build, I'd at least have 40 Vigor at level 60, which sounds steep, but survivability is king when all of your damage comes from your weapon upgrade level and not necessarily your stats. And I make some foolish decisions. I've always been bad at fighting curved greatswords in this game. They're slow enough to be deceptive, but fast enough that it throws me off, kind of like halberds. They're in that mid-tier when it comes to speed. But they also have a little more range. But yeah, this guy, it was a good fight, I felt. I had him on the ropes a couple times, but ultimately he has home advantage. And I don't know what level he was. He could have been a good amount higher level than me. Maybe higher upgraded weapons, who knows. But inconsequential, skill reigns supreme. So I was doing all of this invading as a part of Vare's questline. I should have detailed that in the last episode if I didn't. And you just need to invade 3 people, succeed or fail. You don't need to do like 19 or whatever invasions that I did here. Or I wasted 19 fingers. I don't think I even got that many clips. But I did 19 fingers just because I thought that would give me some good footage to look at. Yeah, here I was getting some good pokes off on him. But he just is so beefy. And he hits me a lot harder than I hit him. Which, probably a consequence of split damage early on. Yep, every time he gets a heal off, it's basically a full heal. Cracks me up. Really slaps me on the knee. I'm trying to think of other things I should be discussing during this. I haven't talked at length, and I don't have lore descriptions in front of me. I guess I could talk about different groups, archetypes within the PvP Souls community, since most of the playthrough won't be about that. I should probably discuss a little. Of course, there's people who are sweaty tryhards, as a lot of people like to call them, where they do all the numbers, they do all the maths, they make sure they have the most optimized build possible, they'll make sure that they have the best starting class, and they will make sure they have all the weapons they want duplicated with perfect inventory layouts, all necessary things in order to give you the best advantage, right? And all those things, of course, will give you a severe advantage, because if you have to hit the other guy 5 times to win and he has to hit you 10, even if you're a little worse, you just have better odds. And of course, there's always people who could probably make a bad build work, but even the really good players, they're of course using the best stuff, which I feel like gives them more playtime because they're not dying immediately, and then the practice kind of snowballs. And a lot of the people who are really good in the community who do YouTube videos and things like that, they've been playing Souls games in a PvP aspect, or playing the PvP aspect of these Souls games for several games in a row. Like, these games have existed since, 2009? I think Demon Souls came out, and that was just like the barest framework of what is now in Elden Ring, but still, a lot of the things are still there mechanically. And they've only grown across the games. So anyone who started PvPing then or Dark Souls 1 and did so regularly and even professionally for their job or just as a major hobby. And we get these guys a lot, these reds who show up and they just start attacking their fellow red out of nowhere. I don't know what inspires it. I don't know what these people are thinking, but he gets demolished pretty quickly. They usually do. Because the invaders, they're using a Taunter's Tongue, or sorry, the host. The host and his phantom are using a Taunter's Tongue, which lets them get invaded more often and have an extra slot for an invader. And for some reason, invaders are brain dead and just start attacking the nearest thing they can. Usually they're friendly red. I couldn't tell you why. I've been with the game since, well, I guess a little bit in Demon Souls, a tiny bit in Dark Souls 1. I really latched onto the franchise in Dark Souls 3, kind of at the end of its life cycle, the last 2 or so years of life before Elden Ring. Yeah, that sounds about right. And I got into the PvP a smidge, not for recording purposes or anything professionally, but just for fun. I would do quite a bit of it. It was a little simpler PvP, I would say. And so these reds, I don't know where these red phantoms are coming from, where they just attack their friendly red out of nowhere. I don't know if one's a recusant and the other's a bloody finger, and so they decide you're the enemy, and they won't decide you're the enemy if you're not a part of their if you are a part of the other invader faction. I don't think that should matter, but maybe they're that observant. If they're doing it for roleplay purposes, bravo, but I will never know, and that's not for us to know, I suppose. Just wild, rampant speculation. So personally, fighting these people in this particular invasion, I think I should have lost. They were on point. They had good builds. They had an overleveled phantom. They just had everything against me. And this is a little rematch here. But the PvE took care of them. I just kind of guided them along while I tried to figure out what I was doing. And here is a great example. So whenever you're playing with a phantom or another player who's a higher level than you, they get downscaled, right? But the downscaling's a little busted, especially at the lower levels. I would say, yeah, and then I just get tapped right there, and that's 70% of my health in a single spell. It's like levels, early levels to probably about level 60 or 70. The scaling feels whack, and so an overleveled phantom will just demolish reds, no problem. About level 80, you can still get demolished, but you have enough damage output that you can usually kill the overleveled phantoms without getting too sweaty about it. Right, I was talking about archetypes. So there's the sweaty players, right? And then there's these guys, right? I felt so bad. I didn't know what emote to do. I just kind of picked one, I panicked, and I killed him really fast. There was no pride in it, even in the moment. And then there's this fellow here. And I was like, well, he's got two dual swords, maybe he'll wreck me. And I was like, what's going on? I give him the smack, and then I realize he's not fighting back, right? It's just, I don't know what's going through these people's heads. Like, you're invaded, you're in the Academy Raya Lucaria, and you're playing multiplayer. This probably isn't your first time doing co-op. The game's been out for a bit. Who knows? But I killed him with the large glintstone scrap. I wanted to see if he was gonna roll and just, like, bide his time to summon a phantom. No. Who knows? I say that a lot, it feels like. There's a lot you don't know, and that's kind of the point of Souls game. You don't know what's going on. You're not meant to know. It's not for you to know, the lowly player. You're simply meant to wonder. Kind of makes me smile, though. The basis for that whole not knowing nonsense is Miyazaki, one of the directors of the game franchise. He would read Western fantasy novels, I presume in English, but I couldn't quantify that for sure. And he could only get some of the details because, of course, he wasn't a fluent speaker of English, in my speculation. It could be any Western language, but English is probably seems the most likely. I should have died here. I've got, like, no red in my health bar, but I do get away. Just barely. And so Miyazaki would read these Western novels and only have a glimpse of what was going on, feasibly. And he would have to fill in the gaps himself, and that's kind of what he wanted to recreate with the Souls games. And a lot of people go, well, that's a bad way of storytelling. That's like reading a whole bunch of post-it notes on the fridge and going, that was a great novel. And you're partially right. It's not meant to be a novel. But you're supposed to be a little more engaged. It trusts you. And that's a big thing with all the Souls games, is that they trust you, the audience, to figure it out, to put the pieces together and to come up with something, anything. That pertains to story, that pertains to defeating any encounter. They want you to figure it out. You could ram your head against the wall until you get good, or maybe you'll change tactics and something will work, or maybe you'll figure out some gimmick during the boss fight. Demon Souls had a lot of gimmick boss fights, and they seem to have tapered back a little bit as difficulty became the biggest meme for the Souls games. That difficulty, oh, they're so hard, they're so tough. And they're, you know, not the easiest. It's no Assassin's Creed 1 in terms of just guiding you on rails most of the adventure. But, yeah, so you got the... Let's see if I can recall my thoughts. So we've talked about the sweaties, and then there's the... I don't know, I almost want to call them the senseless dopes. Like that, the people I invaded in the Raya Lucaria Academy, where they just didn't seem to know what was going on, and they were killed pretty easily. Let's see, there's the sweaties, there's the dopes, and then there's the PvEers, the people who just kind of rush through the game. They're very frightful when you show up. They will swing back, but they're just kind of wearing whatever. It looks like they've never looked at anything on the internet pertaining to stats, that they're just using whatever's available to them. And you know what? Power to them. Just play the game, enjoy it. It's such a shame that the community can be so mean and unwelcoming, and if you want to play with your friends in a casual aspect, this is not exactly the game for that. I thought this particular duel was pretty good. A sweaty one, but a good one nonetheless. And I was trying to power through. I'm so used to playing characters who wear good armor. I just don't have any armor on, essentially. Just wear robes and some metal gauntlets and pants. I don't even have enough poise for a dagger. How sad is that? But yeah, so I'd say there's the sweaties, the dopes, the PvEers, and if I were to at least add one more to the group, I would say the gankers. They're the sweaties, but on the other side of the same coin. They're the match made in Hell, Michigan. They are the ideal counterpart for the invader. They also do the number crunching. They also figure out the best builds and inventory layouts. Their whole purpose is to get in a group, because they're a little less courageous, and they gang up on the invader. And they're allowed to do this. There's nothing inherently wrong or illegal with doing it, though it's generally frowned upon. Of course, it's less fun to just get mercilessly stomped. Everybody wants to put in a good fight, even if you lose. And gankers get a bad rap, of course, but they're just playing the game. They're enjoying it. I don't like them either, because I also do a little bit of the invading, but when you do overcome a group of gankers, you know, the group that's trying their darndest, they have the best stuff, they've duplicated all the items that they need to, you feel a sort of pride in having overcome such a sheer obstacle. And sometimes it's not reasonable. And here I had my blue circlet on for some largely unexplained reason. I want to record more PvP videos in the future, aside from the main line playthrough. I love this. We go and we shake our weapons at each other until we get right to it. So I want to create more PvP videos in the future. And I want to showcase little builds. I think I want them to be a little more flavorful than just here's the best, because you can go watch a Stielovski on YouTube or a J9. I think that's how you say it. And those YouTubers are Chase the Bro, and those fellas, they'll get you good builds, great stats, fairly optimized, and good skills, chops in how to play. You can watch them and get better, and I don't think I want to center my videos around that. I kind of want to do a little more flavor. I kind of want to have a character behind the build. Make it a little more lore-friendly PvP, which will take a good amount of effort. And I think the builds will have a certain amount of sweat available to them, each of them. I'll try to make them functional as well. But for the most part, I'm not going to be overly concerned with doing the best thing possible. I think I'm going to go with the 70% percentile. You know, the mostly good camp. Yes. So right there where I hit him once and then I was able to hit him again with the greatsword, that's because I actually angled The hits, I'm bad at it, so that was a success on my part. That's something I'm bad at, but if you hit them with the end of the first strike and the beginning of the next strike, both on the left-hand side of your body, the hits can be close enough together that they can't roll out of it. So that felt nice. That was not the most entertaining clip. It's kind of sad for that invader, but I figured I would include me being a blue at least once per one of these invasions or invasion videos to kind of show the dynamic off a little bit. Like, how does this build function when you're outnumbered? How does this build function when you are working as a team? Things like that. Because the first PvP video I think I'll release after this one, I'll give a little sneak peek. He's going to be the City Watch, and I'll let you ponder what that could possibly refer to. But I made the build originally to, of course, test out a certain aspect of a strength build. But I also wanted the character to be like a relatively meta level, like 150, I think is where the build is at. So just, or a smidge above meta level. And the purpose of the build was to guide new players through the lands between. Because invaders can be very mean, especially if you're a casual player. And I wanted to be the champion of the weak and the downtrodden, the new player. That was a goal of mine. And so it was kind of fun figuring out a build that would be on high alert at all times and have stuff to deal with invaders. But he was a melee-centric build, a strength build, right? So I don't have spell spam or a really huge mana bar. He's only level 150, so when I'm playing with people, I'm like not severely over-leveled. I would start playing with that character with my friends, or friends of mine that I was playing through the game with, when they were probably around level 100, so it wouldn't be too sheer a difference. I would hold off a little. I do like being in the ballpark when it comes to PvE, and that's kind of one of the benefits of having a lot of characters, is you can kind of tailor your PvE experience, and I've had a good amount of joy doing that as well. This was a fight I actually rather enjoyed, because a lot of these either I get stomped or I stomp them, and it's not so much back and forth. But this one is, I would consider this group the PvEers I referenced before. They're just kind of using what's available to them, right? They look like they haven't looked up anything on the internet. Maybe they have, I don't know. I couldn't tell you, right? But power to them. They gave me a good run for my money with my horribly unoptimized build. It's like 35 vigor, 20-something int, and 20-something strength, and like high teens dexterity, and just like no equip load, really light armor, but not light enough armor to light roll and get that bonus. So that attack that happened back there, I drank my physic, and at I think this point in the footage, my physic gave me a bonus to charge attacks. I think I have the axe talisman on as well, so both of those things enhancing my charge attacks. I actually hit them with a fully charged charge attack, and then a follow-up finished off the phantom. It was like one of the few times I was able to get damage off, which was very nice. I felt like the whole time my damage was lackluster, but that's just a condition of playing at level 60 with the nonsense no build like this. But this guy put up a good fight. It does feel like such a slugfest though. It's just hit after hit, chip after chip. It feels like Dark Souls 3 where nothing's doing that much damage. Which is funny because it's like the polar opposite of what late game Elden Ring is like, where people are dying in 2 or 3 hits. Just because everything does such huge damage. Or it feels like 2 or 3 hits. It's good chunks of damage. Good old running heavy on the heavy thrusting sword. Such a great way to close the gap. But yeah, this is my first time talking at length, I would say. I talk at length in the playthrough, of course, but I have items to look at, environments to stare at. The stream of consciousness has a little more to feed off of. This is just whatever comes out of my head and a little bit of the fight that's on screen. And this video is gonna be like 35 minutes. If you're watching this, bless your heart and bless your soul. I can't believe you're doing it. If you've made it this far, this should be episode 48 of the Lorethrough. Welcome. Thanks for being here. You are my strongest bot. Please farm more views for me. I'm just joking. But, oh, this was a fun little exchange here, this invasion. So this is somebody who, I don't know what camp I'd put them in, but they're something you only see if you invade, right? And they are the solo Taunter's Tongue playthrough. I haven't done one of these. I'm kind of tempted to. It would probably be a good experience, honestly. Kind of help sharpen my skills. If I do another playthrough of the game, that would take so long. It's gonna take so long just to finish the first one, given how often I can record. But yeah, he's playing through the game. It looks like Taunter's Tongue. He got a fairly optimized build by the looks of it. He's semi-competent. He's competent enough to deal with me, and I'm not that competent, so he's definitely got it out. For me, I show up and I make things difficult. Here I'm using twin swords just because it's nice to have something that does a little more damage. Twin swords are probably considered meta. Yeah, there they are, I would say. If I were to think back to what is really good, it's like twin swords, twin lances, twin spears, halberd main hand, S-stock offhand, stuff like that. Almost everything has a poke or just a ridiculous amount of damage. Damage in spades. This little clip here is actually a rematch against the fellow I beat in the last clip. And I really, really wanted to hit somebody with a colossal sword, like the poke or the light slash, and then follow up with a knife hit, because I'd heard from somebody that it combos. And I don't even know if that's true. I'm not certain about it. Supposedly the poke can combo into the knife hit. But I think I ended up two-handing the sword a little too much and didn't get around to using the dagger. This fellow's using Endure. He's obviously fed up with me. He's willing to just DPS trade. And so I'm trying to figure out what can go well against him, because he has the top of the elevator. He has a narrow hallway. He has a good great sword. His stats are probably allocated properly. He's got gravity fans, which is an expensive item to waste when you know you're not going to hit somebody. Okay, it's not expensive, but you don't get a whole lot of them in a playthrough. There's probably enemies you can farm for him, so it makes me wonder if he had a friend drop all these items for him. Because, I mean, if you're doing a Taunter's Tongue playthrough, you probably want to be as prepared as possible. If you're playing on PC, it's extraordinarily easy to duplicate items or to get them through some other means. Yeah, I hit him with the Troll's Roar. I like Troll's Roar. It's particularly bad at this level. At least it was for me, except for the knockback from the yell. That has its uses, but the follow-up strike, it doesn't do that much damage, which feels bad because it's so cool looking, and it's so slow, and it has such a wind-up. Here I'm just trying to hit him with it. I just clip him out of the air. He did far more damage to me than I did to him. And he's using just a great sword. I'm using a colossal sword that should be making use of my 3 stats, but then again, low level, plus 3 somber. There's not much scaling there. I'd be better off putting the points in vigor, and then some in 1 damage stat, and then just, you know, picking a weapon that hits faster and more often, like twin swords. Or maybe a claymore with I love that. He tries to parry me and I throw a pot in his face. It's like when somebody squares up to somebody else upset after a night of drinking, and the other person just pulls out pepper spray. It's just a total dunk on that person. It's like bunting a baseball. You know, bunting in baseball is when they block the oncoming ball. It's just the most anticlimactic thing, and it's just always made me smile. Bunting. It's such a silly concept for baseball. This was a fun little invasion, mostly because I could not find the host. I saw him on the compass, and I was like, oh, he must have just passed by me. I heard him walking nearby, right? And I see that the marionette puppets have freaked out and shot arrows just everywhere. And then the host is dead. I never see him once. And then I see some health bars, 2 health bars for phantoms, and I get around the corner and they've already disappeared. I have no clue what anyone looked like during that invasion, what their builds were. I just know that they died. This was also a miserable situation. I don't mean that it wasn't fun. I was having fun during most of these, even while losing. I was smiling a lot. Because I like took it in stride. I knew my build wasn't optimized. In this cramped little tunnel, don't use a Colossus Sword, not unless you've got like Waves of Darkness or something on it. And if you don't know what that is, we'll get to it later. It's an Ash of War that you can put on big weapons, and it's just a big multi-hit AoE. Good area control. But I'm just trying to make the Troll's Knight Sword work, and it doesn't have good enough damage for how slow it is. I just wanted to work. Here I switched to the Golem Great Bow because I thought I had Godric's Rune active or something, and thought I had the stats for it. So I'm using this without the stats for it, and so it hits for like 90, which is so sad. Ugh. A lot of very sweaty builds will have a Great Bow on them, and they'll have as many Golem arrows as it takes just to knock you off your feet and get really good chunk damage. I would call it chip damage, but it's more sizable than that, especially at meta levels. 125 to 150 is usually what I'm referring to as meta, though right now it's kind of met in the center, and 137 seems to be very popular. And so when you're around those levels using the Golem Bow, when you hit people with it, you're doing 400 to 600 damage easy, pure physical. And it knocks them off their feet, it can knock them off ledges, and a lot of people use that to chip you considerably, because almost every hit, that's almost a flask. Every 2 hits is definitely a flask that you have to expend. And so if they can chip each of your party members 2 or 3 times with that sucker, then they've already won most of the battle before you even get face to face. And here, these guys, I believe, are the same fellows who stomped me in the very first, no, the second clip at Volcano Manor. They were very good together. They played it smart, they held their ground, they controlled an area that I had a hard time advancing into, but here they're just fleeing. And I guess I kept chasing because I thought they were going to turn around when there was no enemies nearby and then deal with me swiftly. But no, they just keep going all the way to the fight. And so at this point I was just like, I'll just Trolls War and Hail Mary and hope for the best. And it doesn't work out. But I kind of wanted to show all of these clips, mostly because I wanted to share that not every invasion is perfect. Most of them fall flat in some way. Even when you win, it feels like it falls flat. It's not idealized. A lot of the YouTubers, they show off the best of the best clips that look good and make it look fantastic. They glamorize it a bit. Unintentionally, but it looks good and people watch it. It makes sense why they do it. This is the last invasion and my favorite, personally. Because I actually use a weapon that's consistent with Sieghelm as a character, a pickaxe. I put Wild Strikes on it for the joke, and I realized that the damage isn't so bad. The damage was comparable to the Troll's Knight Sword, but it's faster. It's a good deal faster. I was using the Lance Talisman, which is the counter damage talisman, which means if I hit them during their attack, I do a little extra. And I think I might actually do that in the future. Yeah, look at that. Oh, tasty damage. It was nice to deal damage for once. And my sleep pots, my expensive sleep pots. But yeah, even for just a little wake-up hit like that they of course roll out of before the major hit comes, 200 or so damage, not too bad. And just mix in heavies and lights. It was a good time. I really like this invasion. I was happy for everyone. I hope they had a good fight, because they were almost the Grace. I was standing in their way. I'm using the most unassuming looking build. Just name is Foreman Sieghelm, and I'm swinging this big old pickaxe around willy-nilly. I think for the future of Sieghelm, because I really wasn't enjoying the war pick. Well, the war pick's fun. It's a meme, more or less, but it's not that fantastic. I think I'll start using 2 big pickaxes. That sounds fun. Apparently, the moveset isn't total garbage, and if you're wise with it, it can do well. So maybe I'll start doing that. Or maybe I'll get good at the single one. You know? Piercing damage is a good damage type. Physical, buffing it with magic. That feels very consistent. I should be given the big pickaxe more love. But yeah, this was my favorite invasion. It was the last one I did with this character before. This was my last bloody finger to invade with, my last consumable item for it. So I had to make it count, and so I decided to go with this weapon, and it turned out pretty well. This guy's got dual-coated swords. He's got the Radahn outfit. He's twinked out of his mind. I doubt he's gone and killed Radahn already and gotten to New Game +1 to get a second coated sword. But, and I mean, 30 intelligence is nothing to scoff at, or not intelligence, 30 faith, I think, is the requirement for that. Yeah, to that guy, it did like 279. A little Wild Strikes double hit. Hit him, he jumps off, and then I follow him, and that's it. That was a good invasion. That was fun. A lot of them were fun, even the ones I lost, but I want to thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a good one. I'll see you next time for episode 49. Ciao.